I suppose you think them simple because they're generous and do not haggle, and think them timid because you never sell them weapons. You are mistaken. Anyway, there's one that I have my eye on for you, Thorin. He is neat handed and clever, though shrewd, and far from rash. And I think he has courage. Great courage, I guess, according to the way of his people. Gandalf, Unfinished Tales, The Quest of Erebor. Amazon's Rings of Power and its depiction of the hobbits, or not hobbits, proto-hobbits, whatever they're calling them, is a far cry from Jackson's adaptation, let alone what Tolkien envisioned. This show would have you believe they're all poor, filthy, and devoid of any civilized qualities, despite The Hobbit showing us that those who could afford it had entire rooms devoted to clothes. It's reasonable to believe then that most fell somewhere in the middle. They're also depicted as timid and simple-minded, fearful and anxious, and just downright foolish, precisely the perception of them that Gandalf openly rejected. Besides getting their character, personalities, and general way of life wrong, this effort to distinguish the Harfoots as a separate race ancestral to them all is also completely made up nonsense. In The Lord of the Rings, we learn quite a bit about the hobbits. We probably all know by now that prior to their arrival in the West, the hobbits had become divided into 3 different breeds or peoples: Harfoots, Stoors, and Followhides. Harfoots, the star of the show, were the first to be named hobbits by the other 2. They were described as browner of skin than their fair-skinned Fallowhide kin. They were beardless, unlike the Stoors, smaller and shorter. But unlike Amazon's depiction of the group as dirty little homeless hobos, the Harfoots were also the most inclined to settle in one place. And even if the show is attempting to reference the time before their arrival in the West, when the hobbits were still physically and culturally divided, separating out the hobbits and repositioning them as the ancestors of those we meet later simply isn't a thing. The Harfoots were not any more ancient than the other 2. They existed at the same time. Of the 3 groups, some were farmers, others hunters. Each developed their own relationship with the people around them. Harfoots with the dwarves, for example, Followhides with the elves, though eventually they would reunite and become one people. Now, one final point in justifying why they are in the Second Age, which is one of the major problems here, Amazon has made much of the fact that the hobbits didn't become known to men in the West until the Third Age. But unlike what the show would have you believe, the hobbits were unknown to men in the West, not because they were there and hiding in their holes in the ground the entire time. They simply weren't there. Until after one group, the Harfoots, crossed the Misty Mountains and settled in Eriador in the Third Age. What I suspect is that if these hobbits are not in the West yet, fake Frodo and fake Sam will be the ones to lead their people in that direction, lead them to the promised land, becoming the first hobbits ever to discover what will become the Shire. And if I'm right, then we have the point of their being in this show. It is yet another case of rewriting history to push a modern feminist agenda, inserting a female at the start of an existing story because, God forbid, males have any part in founding anything of lasting value. And it makes sense because they also have these girls discovering what is in all likelihood a wizard, except that they arrived in the West and under no circumstances did one just fall from the sky, naked and unable to speak for no apparent rhyme or reason. The sad irony of all of this is that it was during their decline that the hobbits did eventually become the very thing we see here, as Tolkien describes, forgetful of their arts, living a precarious life, absorbed in the search for food and fearful of being seen. And this, we're told, was due to men becoming more numerous and usurping the more fertile inhabitable lands. Nearly a perfect metaphor for this studio and its acquisition and destruction of Hobbit identity, culture, and lore. But hey, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.